In this video lesson, you'll discover how to paint in watercolor using the wet-on-wet glazing technique.
I will make a quick sketch on watercolor paper with graphite pencil. As the name of the painting technique suggests, it has to be done wet on wet. That is why, to prepare watercolor paper for the first glazing layer, I apply clean water over the apple drawing with a soft natural hair watercolor brush. This high-quality brush comes from Escoda. The degree of paper wetness is somewhere between satin and moist, and the paintbrush is also moist. The next glazing layer will be warmer and more saturated, so I add a couple of more pigments into the mix of the palette. Before using this mix, I have to wet the paper surface once again with clean water. Now the warmer layer can be applied on top of the previous one. It is painted onto the wet paper surface, but as a separate glazing layer, because the previous layer was fully dried and stays in place as an underpainting. Before adding every next glazing layer, I prepare the paper surface by wetting it with clean water after fully drying the previous underlayer. You may wonder, why dry every previous layer if the paper surface has to be wet again before adding the next glazing? Such a sequence is very fundamental for this painting technique. It is perfectly possible to paint wet into wet without waiting for paint to dry, but it will no longer be a wet-on-wet glazing painting technique. Instead, it will be wet into wet alla prima, which is very different from what I am doing in this video.